In the opening scene, we are introduced to the protagonist, Bobby Reynolds, who is seen attending a job interview as usual. He is rejected by the employer due to his criminal background. It turns out Bobby has served prison time for manslaughter and is currently on probation after being released from Rikers. As a result of this, he is deemed an outcast, and his former friends, as well as his neighbors, do not want to talk to him. Bobby has now moved to an old apartment in East Village, New York, where his lonely mother lived and died while he was incarcerated upon arrival. Bobby takes an elevator to reach his room, numbered 519, on the fifth floor. During his passage through the corridor, he notices a young girl playing the piano outside room 517. As he enters his room, Bobby finds several photographs of his late mother, as well as a pillow bearing bloodstains. This makes him very sad. After some time of mourning, he starts cleaning up the place. In the midst of this, he overhears an argument between a couple, probably the parents of the young girl in the adjacent room. In an attempt to eavesdrop, Bobby walks out of his room, but he can't hear. Well, he then continues with the cleaning and comes across a cracked hole in the wall behind a piano. Curious, he tries putting his hand inside Strange Choice, but something pricks his finger, causing him to bleed. He quickly enters the bathroom to wash up his wound and finds some antidepressant tablets, likely belonging to his mother, not long after he notices an unidentified person in the opposite apartment window, keeping a watch over his room. However, Bobby doesn't react much to this and simply shuts the curtain. Later that evening, Bobby visits a bar to meet his former girlfriend, Elisa, who works there as a waitress. He asks if they can grab a coffee someday, but she refuses, claiming that she works double shifts. Plus, she doesn't date manslaughterers. Bobby then returns back to his apartment with a sad expression on his face. At midnight, he wakes up to a strange sound emanating from the living room as he proceeds to check its source. He is startled to witness his mother's soul pleading for help. But before he can check further, she snaps out, revealing this to just be a dream. The following day, he goes to the Houston auto repair shop in hopes of getting a job this time. A supportive owner, Hector Rodriguez, hires him, giving him a chance to rebuild his life. But he demands his loyalty and even offers to pay lower wages in the beginning. When Bobby agrees, the owner permits him to join the work from the very next day. Later on, Bobby returns to his apartment, and while on the elevator, he is joined by a police officer, Walter. It turns out that Walter is the father of the same little girl from room 517, who often abuses his family. Maybe Bobby will put his skills to work and manslaughter him. That night, Bobby once again hears peculiar scraping sounds coming from the floor. While investigating, he suddenly hears a piano tone and discovers blood on its keys. Upon further inspection, he discovers some bloody fingernails wrapped in a cloth inside at the piano. Bobby then consults the apartment manager, showing him the nails and inquiring if someone else had previously stayed there before him. However, the manager denies any prior occupants and suggests that the nails might belong to Bobby's mother. He also reveals that his mother had locked herself in her apartment for a week prior to her death from the next day onwards. Bobby begins working at Hector's garage. However, the strange visions and sounds continue to haunt him, even during working hours. One day after work, he goes to meet Elisa with a coffee while walking down the street. Bobby asks if she can give him a second chance and also invites her to visit his apartment. It's really cool. My mom died in it. I keep finding blood. Elisa doesn't give an answer, but she appears to be happy returning home. Bobby finds one of his neighbors, Joseph, trying to listen to something inside his room. When Bobby confronts him, he reveals that he hears strange sounds emanating from this room. Joseph asks if he hears them too, but Bobby walks inside without any response. Later on, He is washing the dishes when he again then hears the argument between Walter and his wife, Gina. He then walks to room 517 door and tries to eavesdrop on their conversation, but inadvertently makes a noise alerting Walter. As a result, Bobby rushes back to his room and shuts the door from inside just before the cop finds him. Afterwards, Bobby is trying to fall asleep on the sofa when he hears another sound from his mother's closet. He proceeds to check and finds the place in a complete mess shortly after he discovers a cassette that contains some screaming sounds of his mother before her death. This leaves him deeply unsettled. Maybe she was just recording vocals for her upcoming metal banger in the morning. Bobby heads down to the apartment basement for laundry. On the way, he feels a strong presence of someone tailing him. The washing machine also activates on its own without inserting any coin, leaving him puzzled. Meanwhile, Alyssa arrives at the apartment and walks straight towards Bobby's room, finding the door open. She enters it and witnesses the same unidentified individual watching from the opposite apartment. Just then, a creepy hand appears behind Alyssa's shoulder.